So, with the recent announcements of both the Godzilla Minus One sequel and Godzilla X Kong Supernova both beginning filming next month and set to drop some point in the next 2 to 3 years, I think it's a pretty good time to look at some kaiju from Godzilla's Rogues Gallery that I want to see come back. This is obviously a very popular topic right now. It's going to be a big popular thing for a while with how explosive the last few Godzilla movies have been. Godzilla X Kong New Empire was massively well received. Minus One took home an Oscar for great visual effects. And I think it's important to celebrate the history of this franchise by looking at some of the other kaiju that exist inside of it. But before we do that, there are a few rules to this. The first rule is that we will not be including any potential kaiju that could show up. What does that mean? Well, that means stuff like Space Godzilla in a movie called Godzilla X Kong Supernova that has been getting hyped up since 2017-ish is probably going to appear. So we're not going to count Space Godzilla. We're also not going to count Gigan because it's very possible Gigan could also appear in that movie. That's also going to lead us into the second rule, which we'll get to in a second. But we're also not going to include Hedorah because Hedorah, not Ghidorah, is stated to be the director of Minus One's favorite Godzilla enemy, and he has directly stated he would love to make Hedorah appear in a new Godzilla movie. So it's very possible that Minus One sequel might include Hedorah. I'm not saying that these are confirmed as of the point of this video going up, but I'm saying that these might be a possibility. So to not bloat out my list with stuff that could potentially appear in the future, we're just going to cut those out. The second rule is that we are not counting anything that has appeared in the Reiwa era of Godzilla. That includes the animated movies, the anime itself, any other kaiju that have appeared in the MonsterVerse, any other kaiju that have appeared in any of the small spin-off movies that they made on YouTube. So that's not going to let us bring in Jet Jaguar, Komunga, Megalon, another reason to not have Gigan on the list. With that all stated and out of the way, now we can really get into this. Coming in at number 10 is going to be Orga. Now, a lot of people are not going to really appreciate Orga too much. I mean, I understand. When I think spacefaring Godzilla kaijus, I think stuff like Space Godzilla, I think stuff like Ghidorah, stuff like Gigan, No one really thinks or considers Orga all like that. Which is why I think it's the perfect time for Orga to come back. We've seen in a lot of the newer Godzilla media, and especially with the new Gamera anime, you can take these old goofy kaiju and give them a one hell of a facelift. In Orga's first movie, he almost ate Godzilla entirely and mutated into him, so I could totally see this being like some sort of mutant alien Godzilla hybrid experiment thing that goes haywire, that starts to wreak havoc on Earth, and Godzilla and Kong have to step in or stop it, or Godzilla in a solo movie takes it on and kills it. I think the potential is pretty interesting, and I really think that we're a little overdue for some of these more weird one-off kaiju to really make a comeback. Coming in at number 9, we have Mogera, and now my reasoning for Mogera is pretty simple. We had Mechagodzilla multiple times in the Reiwa era. Maybe it's time to bring in some more other mechanized monsters. Mogera fits that mold pretty well. You don't want to go into the weird, over-the-top stuff like Mechanic Kong, or making Mecha King Ghidorah, or anything else like that. Then yeah, Mogera I think would be a really great addition to the roster. Coming in at number 8, it's going to be Batra. Batra is very interesting as a character. It's presented as a evil, darker alternative to Mothra, but I don't believe Batra's ever actually appeared in a Mothra movie. But I feel like Mothra in the MonsterVerse has a lot of interesting stuff going on. Having her symbiotic relationship with Godzilla on top of being a protector of the Hollow Earth people. I feel like introducing a darker, more demonic version of her would be a very interesting idea. Plus, Batra is well overdue for a redesign. Mothra has a lot of great designs, and Batra's big design just doesn't work. I think Batra's in need of a massive Hollywood redesign, or just a modern redesign in general. even if it's in one of like the side movies or whatever, or the little YouTube movies or whatever they've been making. I would love to see it.
In the number 7 spot, we're going to put Baragon. Now, originally I had Manda in this spot, and then I remembered that it was in singular point. So, when I was looking over the Kaiju list, I honestly was thinking, hey, you know what? Baragon doesn't get enough love. I feel like with a good redesign, maybe we could actually give Baragon some love. He hasn't been around since GMK, and even then, he wasn't originally supposed to be in that movie. He was supposed to be replaced with Anguirus, but they wound up swapping him out for Baragon. I believe it was pretty not late in development, but at some point in development, they switched him out for Baragon. So let's bring Baragon back with actual intention this time and actually make Baragon worth really looking at and appreciating as a kaiju.
Next up on the list is Mecha Ghidorah. Now, I don't know if it was ever outright confirmed, maybe they changed the plot or not, or maybe it was just a bunch of theories online, but I do remember hearing a lot of stuff back after Godzilla x Kong came out about maybe Mecha Ghidorah would be the next big thing, piloted by the guy who was piloting Mecha Godzilla. Like I said, I don't know if that was like they changed it or those were just a bunch of theories and rumors that got way too widespread super fast. But I do think that Mecha Ghidorah would be really cool to see come back. You know, we always go with Mecha Godzilla because Mecha Godzilla, very iconic monster, very good monster. And we don't really go back to like some of the other mechas. Like I was saying earlier with Mogera, we don't really visit a lot of the other ideas we had for mechs in the Godzilla series. Like Jet Jaguar, I think, is the only other mech that comes back. And even then, I guess that kind of depends on if you define it as a mecha or not, because it could just be a robot. And we're entering into the top 5 now with King Caesar. King Caesar is a really interesting kaiju because he's kind of like a lion-style dude. And I definitely feel like he should come back because it's the only... If you're looking at just the MonsterVerse, the only mammalian, I think would be the correct term, kaiju we have are the Kong species. There's a bunch of lizards, there's a bunch of reptiles, there's a bunch of aliens, but there's no other mammals. And I think having King Caesar come back would be worth it. Plus, King Caesar is just a really good design. I like his power ability with to be able to like reflect stuff with his eyes. That's pretty cool. Although I don't know if that would come back in the more grounded, modern interpretations of Godzilla. That might wind up getting left on the wayside in favor of something else. But, I don't know. I think King Caesar should come back. I'm not the only person. I've heard a bunch of people over the years say King Caesar should make a comeback. And if you're not going to put him in a mainline movie, put him in one of like the small YouTube movies that you guys are making nowadays. That'd be so good. You know, that's the best way to keep some of these like older kaiju alive if you don't want to ever bring them back into the mainstream like that. Coming in at number 4, we have Gorosaurus. Gorosaurus is a really fun dinosaur-based kaiju that originally appeared in the first and only Toho-produced King Kong movie, and we still have yet to see this version of Kong fight a dinosaur. I mean, yeah, he's fought Godzilla, he's fought the Warbats, he's fought Mechagodzilla and Shimu and Scar King, but like it's iconic to see King Kong beat up a T-Rex, right? So like bring Gorosaurus back, even if it's just for him to get his ass kicked by Kong. I still think it'll be worth it. Plus, Gorosaurus in the Showa era knocked the fuck out of King Ghidorah, so I could absolutely see him coming back and them doing something with him at least. Now we're entering into the top 3, starting with Biollante. Biollante is the fusion of Godzilla cells, a rose, and a young girl from the Heisei era, and the entire movie she's from is fantastically well done. One of the best Godzilla movies in the franchise, and her kaiju design, while a little bit dated, I will admit, and while the effects at the time weren't up to snuff for what it could have possibly been, I feel like Biollante could absolutely use a revamp nowadays. The only issue I could really see is that, much like a lot of the kaiju that get reused over and over again, Biollante's message of watching what you do when you play with science could very well get lost in the shuffle, in a similar way to like Godzilla's nuclear war messaging, or Ghidorah's original pollution, King Kong's messaging about nature. Like all of these kind of got lost in the shuffle with all of the big monster stuff, and I feel like Biollante bringing her back would wind up causing her message to be lost as well. So I could understand the people who don't want to see her come back. She is really, really cool. So that's kind of why I would like to see Biollante come back. Coming in at number 2 is Destroya. Now, I know the second rule is that we're not supposed to look at kaiju that might come back in the future, but the simple fact of the matter is that nothing has been stated on whether or not Destroya could come back. Now, I think if Destroya does come back, it would have to be at the end of the Monsterverse, because when you think of Godzilla killing kaiju, your mind is going to go to Destroya. That was a big event, especially if you were alive for that and you went through that. And Godzilla actually did stay dead for a little bit until, America revived him and then they started the Millennium Era. But I really feel like Destroya coming back would be the perfect way to end the Monsterverse in a similar way to how Thanos would have been perfect to end the MCU, and it could stop this cinematic universe from going on a little bit too long. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a topic for a different video. My point here is that Destroya is a really sick and really awesome kaiju that definitely should have a comeback now. And for my number 1 choice for a kaiju that needs to return, or I guess technically it would need to be introduced, is Obsidius. There are 2 kaiju that are exclusive to video games, and I'm not going to pretend to know all of the copyright stuff. It's from the 2007 Pikeworks game, I think Godzilla Unleashed. I don't know if there's a right dispute with this or not. I would think that since it falls under the Godzilla umbrella, the rights would be owned by Toho, but I don't know how that all works. But I think it's time that we actually take one of these 2 kaiju at the bare minimum and introduce them into the actual real Godzilla series, right? And I'm choosing Obsidius over Crystalac because I think the design of Obsidius is just better overall. And like I said, I feel like we need to start looking into some more of these either lost kaiju or strange exclusive kaiju, and start bringing them into the actual Godzilla canon a little bit more. And it's sort of what they did with Shimu, because Shimu was actually a reinterpretation and a reimagining of a Heisei-era kaiju, and I feel like overall that would be an actually really cool idea for them to start doing. He's my number 1, so that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate it if you guys stayed and watched this. If you want to come back next week, we're going to be finishing out Kaijulai by discussing the 5 Gamera kaiju that I feel like needs to make a comeback. From there, we're going to be just moving on afterwards to some other stuff going on. I'll see you guys then. Peace out.